Hey everyone, I'm Rudy Oliva. You're watching Smoking the Barbecue. It's been a while since I was able to do a video just because I've had a bunch of projects going on inside the house that are still not even finished, and I've also had just some schedule changes with work. It's just been a little hectic lately, so I haven't had a chance to do much barbecue, let alone make a video. So for today, I figured what better thing to do now that I have a little bit of time than to cook a brisket. That's exactly what we're going to do. Today's video is going to be a brisket cook from start to finish. Now my plan is today I'm just going to do the trim, and then tomorrow morning I will go ahead and throw the brisket onto the smoker. So stay with me, let's go inside and let's get started. Alright guys, so what I got here is a 15-pound brisket, and I paid just over 66 bucks for it. This is a choice brisket, and it was the smallest one that I could find actually at my grocery store. So let's go ahead and get it open and we'll start trimming it. Alright guys, so the side that has this layer of fat is going to be our fat side. The leaner side is the meat side. So I'm going to start trimming the meat side. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up all the silver skin and all these little thin pieces of fat here. So we're going to start trimming these off. Now these fat trimmings that we take off are not going to waste. I put them in this dish, and they are going to go into the smoker with the brisket. We're going to render it down to tallow, and then later we're going to add it to the brisket. So now the next piece that we're going to take off is this chunk of fat right here. Now, usually you start pulling it and you can kind of start seeing where you want to start cutting it out from. And this is a big, thick hunk of hard fat that is not going to render down. So we want to take this thing off as cleanly as possible. So I think for right now, that'll do it for the meat side. If I have to, I'll probably do a little double check once I'm done with the other side. So let's flip her over and get started on the other side. All right, so on the fat side, what I want to do is I want to get all this fat down to a nice thin layer. I don't know, maybe about 1/8 of an inch thick. So we're going to trim a bunch of this off, and it is going to take a while. One of the things that I do first though, just to get an idea of how thick it is, I'm going to cut straight down along the sides until it's like this, where you could see the fat and the meat and know exactly how thick this is. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that first. Alright, so now before I start taking the fat off the top corner right here, I want to round it out. So I'm just going to cut right along here and just eliminate this chunk here that's on the corner. Now, the one thing that is important if you want to build a good bark, when you're making your trims, trim on a downward slope, because you want all of the juices that flow from this to flow off of the brisket. You don't want it to puddle on here, because what that's going to do is it's going to cause that area, wherever it puddles, it won't build up any bark. So just make sure that you just trim it in a way where it's all going to just slide right off of there. So now here on this top part, as you can see, the fat cap is actually really, really thin. So I don't want to mess with that because I don't want to leave it bare. So this area where the fat cap is really, really thin, we're just going to leave that alone. I'm just going to touch up here, and then we're going to trim off the last part. Now this part here, you see how thin this is? When I cook this, this is just going to dry out like crazy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to take this chunk off. Now, I hear a lot of barbecuers say, oh, you know, you could save it for sausage, whatever. I'm not making sausage. This is going in the trash. But I am going to take it off just because it's going to be extremely dry. All right, here is where my process is a little different than some of the other barbecue guys. Now, as you guys know, the brisket is two muscles, and they are called your point and your flat. Your point is your fattier, thicker side. Your flat is your leaner, more flat side, obviously. So, one of the things that I do differently is I cut out a significant portion of this chunk of fat to the point that I actually dig into the meat, and I'm left with this as a flap that kind of hangs there. Now, again, I don't like this huge chunk of fat inside of my brisket. I don't like biting into that. Not only that, one thing that I like about doing it is that it flattens out the whole brisket to where there's a more, to where it's more even, and I think that it cooks a little bit more even, and in my opinion, it just comes out better in the end, because what tends to happen is this cooks way before this does, and the smoke isn't as even. So that's just my thing that I do different, and I know some guys out there may disagree, but that's just how I like to do it. All right, guys, that there is how I do it. Now when I bring this down, boom, look at that. It flattens this down almost to the same level as the flat. That is why I do it this way. Now the smoke can evenly go right over it. All the fat that starts coming up at the top is going to render down right off to the sides, and hopefully I will have no puddling. So that's it. I'll probably just clean up a couple things, you know, look it over, and that's it, and we're done. All right, guys, so it's morning now, and we're going to go ahead and start with this cook. Before we start seasoning the brisket, we're going to get this fire going. As you guys can see, we're going to be using my Yoder offset smoker for today's cook, and we're going to be using hickory wood. I like hickory wood for a couple of reasons. One, I like the way that it burns, I like the flavor that it gives, and it's also just very easy to come by around here. You know, they sell it at Home Depot, Walmart, so it's just readily available. So, all right, let's go ahead and get this fire going. For the seasoning for today's cook, I'm going to be using coarse kosher salt, coarse ground black pepper, and garlic powder. I usually don't do the garlic powder, but just want to try something different today, so I'm going to be putting at least a little bit of this on there. All right, let's get started. All right, so I like starting with the meat side first. And the first thing that I put on is my salt. And we're gonna put a nice thick layer of salt on there. Up next, nice coat of black pepper. And finally, our garlic powder. Now let's flip her over and do the other side. Now, one other thing, that flap that I created, I want to get in there a little bit too. Fire's looking good. Temperature is just a little higher than what I want, but that's fine right there. I'm going to try to keep it between 225 and 250. And we are burning clean smoke. So I'd say we're ready to go ahead and put this on. Alright, so my brisket's going to go in with the point facing the fire, since that's the part that takes the longest to cook. And I'm going to put it a little bit offset to the left, just so it's not that close to the fire where the point's going to burn. But I also don't want to put the flat too close to the end here, just because this is going to be a heat spot and it could burn the flat as well. So right there looks about right. And we're going to take our fat trimmings and I'm going to put it in this back corner here so that that renders down, and it's going to be our tallow for later. Okay guys, so my goal for the next 2 to 3 hours is to not have to open that lid at all. I just want to manage the fire, keep the temperature steady right around 225, and then after about 2 to 3 hours, then we'll start spraying it with a mixture of half apple cider vinegar and half water. And while I'm out here, one of my favorite things to do is cook up a nice breakfast. Okay, that'll do it. We'll check back in another hour. Okay, so we're 4 hours in. We're going to go ahead and spray it again. And we're going to keep spraying it every hour until we're ready to wrap. Okay guys, so I just hit the 6 hour mark of the cook. Let's go ahead and take a look. And that is looking very nice. Now let's go ahead and check out the internal temperature, see how we're doing. And we are at 150. So I haven't quite hit the stall yet. It's been still going up, so I'm not gonna wrap it just yet. We're gonna give it a little bit longer. But let's go ahead and give it a spray. Alright, we'll check on it again in a little bit. Okay guys, so we are 8.5 hours into this cook, and our internal temperature at the point is at 152. So we definitely hit a stall. It really hasn't moved up from there, so we're going to go ahead and pull it and wrap it. Alright guys, so here we have all that tallow that was rendered down, and we are going to pour it all in here. Let's wrap this thing up. And we're going to do one more over the top. Alright, so the reason that I put it in the dish is because I'm going to go ahead and finish it in the oven. I'm losing daylight, and now that it's wrapped in foil, it's not picking up any more smoke flavor. So all I'm trying to do is just get it to the temperature that it needs to be so that it's done, and we can take it out and put it to rest for a couple hours. So I already have my oven preheated, and we're going to go ahead and bring it inside and put it in. Alright guys, so 11 hours into the cook and we are done. Internal temperature at the point was at 198, so I went ahead and pulled it from the oven. Sorry that I'm out here in this dark lighting, but my wife and my daughter are inside making a bunch of noise, so I had to come out here. So now the next step is to let it rest. That's the last step. It's going to go into this cooler, and usually I like to let it rest for a minimum of 2 hours. Now, this I'm bringing to work tomorrow morning. It's for my coworkers. So I'm probably going to let it rest until tomorrow morning before I go to work, and then we'll open it up and take a look at it and see how it turned out. All right, so I'll see you in the morning. All right, guys, so it's 4:30 a.m. and this has been resting for about 7 hours. So let's go ahead and cut it open and see how we did. Oh my god. That's good brisket. Wow. This thing was right on point. Brisket for breakfast, you can't beat it. Alright guys, so there you have it. That was the full brisket cook. Turned out great. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments.